Everybody, let's jump right into this thing. I'm going to show you guys another way to do some layer masking and keep things kind of simple. And we'll be using Philogix PBR Painter Pro, the Carver tool, and the hard surface toolbox, which I created in this tutorial. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to the tutorial. I'm just going to go over some symmetry modeling real quick, and then we're going to go over an inset. So I'm just going to bring the 3D cursor somewhere here, take up the front view, and with the hard surface toolbox add-on that I've created, I'm going to grab the carver tool, and I'm going to make sure depth is turned on for the cursor, and I'm just going to cut in a basic bevel, something like that. And so now if I wanted to, I can go ahead and do some symmetry work on this and go to Y, negative, and tool it, Z, positive, and tool it. And that'll give me all four sides, which is pretty cool. And there's no modifiers here because the modifier auto apply is on. If that's off, then you'll have a mirror modifier, and it's not going to be anywhere near as efficient or quick. So if I go in here, I will have a symmetry line. I'll just hit Alt Y, and I'll go ahead and select the edge loop that's there, and I'll hit X, and I'll dissolve that edge. Now from here, there's two roads you could take. You could select whatever edges you want to bevel, and I hit my coplanar faces and then direction, and what that's going to do is allow me to put in a bevel or a chamfer or something cool, whatever I want, and then I can do that. Now I can shade auto smooth automatically. I can also add a bevel and then click the preset, and it's all done. All the shading, geometry, the amount, all that's already done for you. And if you like what you see, you could just apply it from here. And so now if we come over here, we've got some funky geometry. So if I go to face select and try to fill these faces, then you can see we've got some funky things going on. So in order to get around this, instead of all these individual selections, I'll just grab these, shift select these, Alt Y, and I'll select those loops, X, and I can dissolve those edges out of there nice and quick. So what I want to do is grab these and then inset them so I can bridge the edge loops. But I've got all of these extra edges on the outside that are kind of stopping me. So all I gotta do is take up the side view, I'll come back over, activate the carver tool, and then whatever size I wanted this to be, and I'll hit D for the cursor depth to turn off. I can go ahead and draw in that boolean and just cut it this way, instead of going through all of the bridge edge loops and trying to correct everything. And so now with that nice clean cut, if you go into edit mode, you see all this crazy geometry. So what I'll do is, all right, so now that's good, but I do have all this funky geometry due to booleans and bevels. And so if I was done with this, then I could just hit remesh and then hit the preset for the remesh. It's designed for hard surface models only. It may not work on everything, but what it's going to do if you just go ahead and apply that is really clean up the geometry to a very high degree. And so at this point, you could unwrap this and start to do some texturing. And I'm actually going to do just that. So I hit A for all. I'm going to do a basic Smart UV project. I'm just going to bring the island margin up just a smidge. And now I've got a UV for this. And now what I want to do is bring up Philogix. I'll click New Shader, Metallic Workflow. And everything there is pretty standard. I can leave it that way. I'll set up the bake for 2048. I'll use the GPU quality of 2. I want my normals, my ambient, and my curvature, and I'll go ahead and bake that and be right back. All right, so the bake is done. All right, with that baked, I'm in material preview. I'm gonna go I'm gonna go over to the base channel here, and let's go ahead and just throw on a material. I'll throw on the aluminum, one of my favorites. Everything looks good. Now I'm gonna throw another material, and we can make this one smart rust. All right, so you'll have some controls here that are going to change everything, and you'll see you have these kind of patches from the boolean. I did a video on how to actually correct that, but I also found another way to kind of use that to your advantage. So what you can do is with that rust layer, let's go to the layer channel, add a paint, and we'll come down to new. And you can set it to 2048 for both of these. Leave it on black and click OK. And just give that a moment to load. And now you see everything has disappeared because now it will have to be painted in. But we can do something a little different. We can go to the layer and go from mix to add. And it's going to bring it back. But now we have the option to paint it in. So I'll go over to paint. And what we can begin to do here, if the strength is up and you're on white here, then you'll be able to actually paint some various rust deformation on the edges. And the more you concentrate in that area, the more intense the rust and deform will be. And so you can kind of blend all this stuff in, which is pretty cool. Kind of like doing that. Now there's obviously some handwork there, and so you can go through and kind of give a little extra to this if you want. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time doing this, but I do want to blend this in a little bit. Something like that looks kind of good, and maybe just a little bit here just for the look. Doesn't have to be too crazy. And this is already fully painted in the curvature. So now we can go back to the base, rename it as such, go to rust, and rename it. And then come back down to the curvature. And now what you'll see is you'll be able to also blend that in here as well. You can bring up the detail, which I like to bring it up to 15. You can change the bump, and you can invert it in or out, whatever you want. And then you can mess around with the ambient occlusion. And I would say that right there, just adding a little more deform to this. You don't have to have the strength all the way up, and you kind of add some larger fills in here and kind of splattered that. That's pretty cool. And so this one comes preset, if you will, with the bump with like heights. You don't really have to do as much, which is nice. Anyways, there you go. We symmetrized, built a model, corrected it, remeshed it, unwrapped it. Don't forget to go back to that layer on the rust and click finish when you're done, and then you'll have a model. And obviously I didn't paint the entire thing, but just give you guys a little idea of what else you can do. And of course, don't forget, and I'll collapse this for ease of use, you can now export that texture using the GPU, set up the quality and everything else. You can export that UV map as well. Pick a file path, and I'll just create a new one. I'll call it Philogix for now and accept. And so now I could go through and start customizing all of this to my liking and change everything the way it needs to be. All right. Appreciate you guys watching. Smash that subscribe, smash that like on the way out. Let me know in the comments below if this was helpful. See you in the next one.